I gotta tell ya, after the baby mobs update, I was getting seriously worried about this game's future, more than I already was. I was losing a lot of faith in Mojang to actually put out a strong update that was both good and would keep the game relevant. And it pained me to not be able to make a video on that, cause I had a lot to say on the matter. When they initially revealed the Sulfur Cube update, it seemed like it was gonna be more of the same. A boring, lackluster update with one or two features that do literally anything other than just sit there. And when it arrived in snapshots, I still felt the same way. Don't get me wrong, the Sulfur Cube itself was always a pretty decent feature, but I, and I assume many other people, were under the impression that this was the main feature of the update, and honestly, it is. I could kind of understand the uses for it, but I was, and honestly still am, a bit unimpressed because at the end of the day, it's very clearly a feature made for multiplayer that you would be hard-pressed to find a use for currently in single player. I imagine it would look like one of those old commercials you used to see where a kid would just be standing at a field alone with a ball because everyone was on their devices or something. While I still do think that the Sulfur Cube needs a bit more single player functionality, I've been very impressed to say the least with how much they've actually improved a lot of the other features in this update. From making cave spiders spawn in the sulfur biome to those cool new geysers, everything has kind of just gotten an upgrade, and I'm really excited to talk about it, so let's do just that. Let's start with the biome itself, the Sulfur Cave. First off, I absolutely adore the colors here. The yellow and red work really well together and generally just look really nice. The water's even special here as it gives you nausea, and it's a nice teal color, which I think perfectly completes the color set of this biome. I will always be one for vibrant looking places in Minecraft because the game these days can look really washed out at times, and the Sulfur Caves add that level of vibrance and niceness to the caves. The biome is made up of the new sulfur and cinnabar blocks, both of which can be turned into several variants and are pretty nice building blocks. They're also very similar to the lush caves in that they have a visual marker on the surface, being the sulfur spring. I'm not gonna lie, these things sucked straight ass for a long time, but recently, the snapshot that came out while I was writing this actually, they reworked them to look a lot nicer by adding some stone-like blocks on the ground and new geysers that can erupt from them. It's such a small change, but it makes it feel like a whole different thing, and it looks about 10 times better. Cave spiders also spawn here naturally, marking the first time that they'll ever do so since their introduction in 2011. Then there's the main feature of this update, the Sulfur Cube. If I just set aside my single player gripes for a second, the Sulfur Cube admittedly is pretty cool. It spawns in the Sulfur Caves, but is completely passive and has an extremely unique feature as it's the first mob that you can modify the attributes of in survival mode. Normally the Sulfur Cube will simply jump around like a regular slime, but if you put a block in it, it'll stop moving and become immune to almost all types of damage. Depending on the block you put in it, it can take on all sorts of attributes like bounciness, slipperiness, and weight. In total, there are 12 different states it can be in, all of which are just different tunings of the bouncy, slippery, and weight stats. This has a lot of potential, specifically for minigames and map making, but that's kind of where the features end as of now, and also where my single player gripe kind of comes in. What use does this mob, which is the feature of this update, have in a single player world? Again, kid alone with ball commercial. It's very clearly meant for multiplayer and map making, and that's okay and all, but it should have some kind of use in single player, even if it's just small. Aside from that though, the cube itself is pretty good. Something I didn't mention actually is that you can throw invisibility on it to make the cube invisible and have the block inside remain visible. This is where the map making potential comes in, as you can now have movable blocks in vanilla Minecraft. Even though the update so far is pretty good, I have a couple suggestions that I think could make it even better. Let's start with a very simple one. I think that the Sulfur Caves need to be a bit more dangerous. Since we already have the cave spiders in there now, let's add on to the poison idea and make it so that the water in the Sulfur Caves gives the player poison. Nausea's great and all, I mean, at least they tried, but it's kinda dumb. It doesn't really do anything cool. So what I'm thinking here is that the water in the Sulfur Caves could actually be sulfuric acid. Better yet, why not actually add sulfuric acid as another liquid entirely so that you can keep the water how it is now? I mean, the building blocks are all there for this. The sulfur springs literally have magma blocks underneath them now, which is close enough to how sulfuric acid forms in real life, so I think it could work really well. You could have like separate pools of sulfuric acid and water in the Sulfur Caves at the same time. It would be a really cool visual. And just a little side thing here, I also think that the sulfur spikes should give you poison when you take damage from them, just to make them that extra bit dangerous and also to differentiate them from dripstone. Another suggestion I have related to water is that it would be really cool if putting potent sulfur underwater would change the water color to how it looks in the Sulfur sulfur caves. In fact, let's go a step further and let the player change the color of water to any biome's variant by putting a specific block under it. I don't know how exactly it would work for most biomes, but for example, I'm thinking that if you put water on top of mycelium, it would change how the water looks in a mushroom island biome. Or if you put a slime block under it, it would change to like swamp water. It could be a limited radius thing too, like maybe it changes all water blocks within 4 or 5 blocks of it to that biome's watercolor. I don't know. I just think it's a cool idea. And then a little tiny suggestion next, please remove the granite gradient thing y'all are trying. It's not great, and it takes a lot of the sulfur and cinnabar blocks away, which is half the reason why I'll even be here. Also, please revert the cave sizes to how they were before y'all tried that, thank you. Oh, and while I was writing this, they actually did that in Snapshot 6, so yay, thank you, Mojang. And my last suggestion I have as of right now, just to keep this video short and sweet, is one that could potentially be the single player use I yearn for. I think that if a sulfur cube has a block in it, you should be able to stand on top of it. Barring the fun rhyme there, this could be a really fun feature. You could finally have proper moving platforms in Minecraft. How cool would that be? Better yet, what if you could stick a slime block inside the cube and other cubes with slime blocks in them next to it would attach to it like a magnet, forming a larger platform. This could be used in both single player and multiplayer as well as in map making, and I can already imagine standing on top of a sulfur cube and going flying as someone hits it with a knockback sword. It would almost be like Fortnite rocket riding, but in Minecraft. Anyways, that's about all I got. Again, this update so far is looking pretty decent. It's not totally incredible, blow your socks off type stuff, but it's definitely going to be one of the better drops we've had since they switched the drop system. All I pray for is that they can realize that we still need major updates, and that drops like this in between would be the best case scenario for the game. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, okay?